Hey everybody, it's Sarah, the Urban Farm Gal, and as promised, I'm going to show you how to dry brine a turkey. Last year I tried to dry brine for the first time and it turned out really great. So I've pretty much decided this is going to be my go-to way to prep my turkey from here on out. So I just picked up our turkey today. It's still just slightly frozen. So if you can have your turkey completely thawed when you start this process, that's great. If it's still slightly frozen, then that's okay. A completely frozen turkey might be a little difficult to get the rub under the skin, but you could brine it otherwise and then let it sit in the fridge and thaw for a few days. And then you could probably do the rub before you bake it. But if you do the rub now, then it has time to kind of work itself into the meat and I don't know, maybe it'll just taste a lot better. So the first thing I'm going to do is I pulled all of the innards out, so the neck and the heart and the lungs, and I've got those set aside. Those are Maybell treats. And then the next thing I did was I've loosened the skin under some of this, and I'm going to prep it for my rub that I'm going to put under here. So if you've never prepped a turkey before or put a rub underneath the skin of a turkey, it can be a little daunting at first because there's that membrane between the skin and the muscle that you have to break through, and it sometimes feels like you might be manhandling it a little too rough and you're going to tear the skin. And it might happen. Our turkey already had a little bit of a tear over the breast meat, but that's okay. And then I tore it a little bit when I was working it, but whatever. So I'll just show you. I've already done everything, but I still need to do this side. So there's this membrane here, and you just got to get in there and work it. And you just got to get those fingers under there and slide it all around and break that membrane. And you also want to try to get into the thigh meat as much as possible because having rub down there would be really good. So once you get the breast down, there's a second membrane that you may have to bust through in order to get to the thigh meat from the same cavity. But once you break that, then it's quite easy. So I've torn my skin a little bit, but as you can see, it's loose enough that it'll overlap so that once it's brining and then cooking, it will cover the meat and keep it nice and moist. So I think I'm done exposing everything I need to expose. So now I have my rub mix, and you can use any sort of combination of herbs and spices. This is one that I found online. Actually, no, correction. Hubby found this online, I think 3 years ago, and then I've kind of added to and modified it a little bit. So it's got your typical Thanksgiving spices in there, sage and rosemary and thyme and garlic, of course, but it also has some interesting spices in there like curry and coriander. So I've added a couple more things. I think I threw some smoked paprika in there last night, and I think I also put some celery powder in there. You could use ground celery seed, but I grew some celery plants a few years ago and they weren't edible, so I just dried them and crushed them into powder. So it works just the same. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to add a little bit of oil to your rub, and that's going to make it nice and moist and kind of keep the moisture in the meat as it's cooking and kind of help it adhere to the body of the turkey. So I'm adding there's 2 tablespoons of oil here, and I've got about 2 tablespoons of rub. Just going to kind of stir it all together until it makes a nice paste. I'm just going to use my spoon, and I'm just going to put some of the oil and rub on the meat and then just rub it into the meat really good. Try to get it back into this thigh meat cavity here. And then just use your fingers and rub it all around as best you can and get it as far down on the drumstick as you possibly can and down into the thigh. So it's a bit of a messy process, and you really just gotta kind of work to get it all in there. So this is a 21-pound turkey we have, so we're expecting a little bit of a crowd this year. So I like to work with my turkey on a baking tray. You could use a cutting board, depending on how juicy it is. You know, your juices could run off the cutting board, so that's why I chose the tray. This smells so good. I know curry powder seems like a really strange spice to add to your Thanksgiving mix, but trust me, it's really, really good. And I will post the recipe that I'm using for my rub on my website. So in case, if you want to give it a try too, then you can. Kind of cover the meat back up with the skin here. Set this aside. Scrape the last of this rub goodness onto the turkey. All right. Okay, next order of business to get down to the brine. So basically all you're doing is sprinkling salt all over the outside of the turkey and also on the inside of the cavity. So I'm gonna start with the inside of the cavity. Set your bird up on end and just sprinkle a good amount of salt in there. And I probably picked up about a teaspoon. And I'm gonna do another probably half teaspoon. You're just gonna rub it all over the inside of the cavity. Ooh, it's cold in there because it's still kind of frozen. And then you're gonna take the salt and you're just gonna rub it on the outside of the bird and just kind of massage it into the skin as best you can. So I started with 3 tablespoons of coarse sea salt. We're flipping the bird. So depending on how long you have to prep your turkey, and I've only got 2 days, I'm gonna let this sit in my refrigerator overnight, and then tomorrow night, I'm gonna pull it out, and I'm going to use paper towels, and I'm going to blot all of the salt off of the surface of the turkey and the inside cavity. And then I'm going to leave it unwrapped in my fridge overnight to let the skin dry out, and that will keep it nice and crispy, but it will keep all the juices and stuff inside while it cooks. Now I'm just going to use a couple of oven bags, and these are just the regular old oven bags that you get for roasting turkeys and stuff in. I'm not actually going to cook my turkey in this. So this should hold a 21-pound turkey. It says we'll hold 24 pounds. We'll see. I think we're good. So we're gonna manhandle this turkey inside the bag, and then we're gonna double bag it. So before we bag the turkey, I forgot there was a couple things we're gonna do. One is I'm going to tuck the wings back behind the head here. So I'm gonna flip it back over onto its back. And then tuck the wing kind of back behind the shoulder. Ooh. And if your turkey is still frozen, this might be sort of difficult to do. Alright, get back out of turkey wing. Are you not gonna go? Well, since I can't get the wings back behind the head so that it looks all relaxed, I'm just gonna forego that part. Once it thaws out a little more, I may be able to get it back that way. I don't know. But the next thing I'm gonna do is tie my turkey legs together. So now I'm going to put the turkey in the turkey bag. Oh, son of a gun. Well, that didn't work out. Okay, maybe it won't hold a 24-pound turkey. Pooh. All right, I got one more. And if this doesn't work, we're gonna have to use a garbage bag. All right, let's try this again. Ooh, that just barely holds a 21-pound turkey. I think they need to modify what they say they can do. I think they're a little ambitious in their advertising here. All right, so secure the tie. And I do want to double bag this. So I'm going to go grab a garbage bag, and I am going to double bag this because you're going to lay it on one side, and then tomorrow morning I'm going to flip it over, let the juices run down the other side of the bird, and then tomorrow night I'll pull it out. Use paper towels, blot the turkey dry, try to remove as much of the salt as possible. The point is not to keep the salt on the bird when it bakes, but to just let it sit and soak into everything. And then you remove the salt just like you would remove the turkey if you had like a big brine solution. So I'm going to use another baking tray to lay the bird on while it's in my refrigerator. Slide it right in there. So that is the basics for how to dry brine a turkey. It's really simple. Rub it, brine it, put it in the fridge, and then remove the brine and then bake your turkey. Start by baking the breast side down. Do it for about a half hour to 45 minutes. Pull the turkey out of the oven and then flip it over so the breast is up, and that will keep the juices and everything in the breast meat nice and moist and succulent and tender, and it'll be fantastic. So that's what you want to do. Trust me on this. Okay, this bad boy is going in the fridge. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody, and we will look forward to seeing you next summer at the beginning of our 2018 summer CSA season. Ciao. That'll be pleasant to listen to.